So today we're going to do stuff on the brain. Here's the brain. It comes out of the cranium. Cranium are the bones that go around the brain. Remember, there is different bones we have. The occipital bone. This is the back side, posterior of the brain. So we look at it this way. This would be front, so it would go this way. Frontal lobe, parietal lobe, temporal lobe, occipital lobe. This under here is called the cerebellum. The cerebellum has to do with balance. Balance is what's called proprioception. Proprioception is knowing where your hands are in space without looking at them. That's why you can go close your eyes and touch your nose instead of all over the place. That's one of the things that helps with that. The bone that goes underneath through here is called the sphenoid. And remember, inside the middle of the sphenoid is a little place called the sella turcica. That's where the pituitary gland sits, and that's right in through here. So it sits right in the top of the skull. Anyway, go watch that video. You'll see where it is. There's different sulcuses. Longitudinally, this is a fissure. A long fissure goes all the way across. You separate the hemispheres this way. You pull it apart. So I'm going to set that one over here. Brains, if you remember, is where all the coordination and information is stored and stuff like that. At least we think. We don't know. There's a lot of new research going on, and every day it changes. They're doing PET scans and MRIs and magnetic resonance, which is MRI, and other kinds of crazy scans which tell what areas will light up or work when the brain is doing certain functions. But what we do know, so we had longitudinal fissure in the middle. We slice it down the side. We're going to turn it this way. So we're going to see the outside of the brain. This is the right side, anterior, posterior, frontal lobe, occipital lobe. Occipital lobe is used mostly for sight, as far as we know. Temporal lobe, smell, hearing, and some emotional stuff. Up and through here, the frontal lobe, planning and forethought. And through here we have the central sulcus. It goes down this way. We don't have a really good picture of it on here, but it goes all the way. You can kind of see. There it is. It's right here. It's kind of hard to see, but it goes all the way up, and it's a little bit deeper. Remember, we have the sulcus and we have the gyri. So we have the central sulcus and the post-central. And the the sensory is in the back of this, and motor is in the front. Okay. And so all of your motor control is up through here. Now, there's a thing called a homunculus. Now, if we draw this out, let's see if I can remember how it goes. So you have your hemispheres go like this, right? And the thing that connects the hemispheres, which we have on this side, we turn it around. On the inside is this big arch through here called the corpus callosum. Corpus means body, and callosum means like callus-like. It's a tough. It's like stringy looking, and it goes from this hemisphere to the other hemisphere. It connects the two. Underneath that is the diencephalon, and then we have midbrain and the pons and medulla oblongata, which we'll talk about later. But where are we at? So we have these, there's the central, the longitudinal fissures here. We have these sulci, and remember the gyri are the lumps, okay? And if they're deeper and more pronounced, there's more activity that goes on there. So for example, when they dissected Einstein's brain after he died, they were trying to look and see, well, if they knew that they were going to find something really special about his brain in some area that they figured would do math or something like that. So they looked and looked and looked. And the only area that they found was an area that corresponded with the left hand being more defined. And it would be on the right side of the brain, it would be low down on the brain, like on the sides down through here. And it was very much more convoluted on the motor and sensory side. So there's that prefrontal, the gyrus, right in front there. That area, which is the motor area, was more defined. The reason it was more defined is because he liked to, when he would think and he would contemplate his work, he would play violin. And so he was using a lot of finger work with that, like doing back and playing a violin. So we see that in other people too. So people who are athletes, for example, they may have the motor areas more defined. People who are massage therapists may have the sensory area more defined. People who are very good with music would have the hearing area more defined. People who are deaf would have it less defined. Okay, that's kind of a generality. We'd have to probably look up and see if there's any tests done on that stuff, but that's basically what we're finding these days. The next part too is, where was I going to go with this? we're going to talk about either side of the brain. Stuff that happens up here would be like the feet. Okay, so your little feet would go here, and then your legs would come down like this, and then eventually you'd have your hands are way up here, okay, somewhere, and then you have your face and your mouth and stuff like this, and they're exemplified. You'll see it's called homunculus, and homunculus is a representation of the body on the surface of the brain. So we would have the hands way up top, because and then as we go down, the motor for the hands is up here, and the motor for the feet is down here. No, actually it's the opposite. Sorry, the feet is here, and the hands are down the bottom, and so it's backwards and opposite. So this is one of the things that happens is your brain, this side of your brain affects the opposite side of the body, and vice versa. Okay, so that's why people who get a stroke on the left side, there's a reason they get that. We'll go over that when we get into vascular. They get a stroke on the left side, and it kills some of the brain tissue on that side. It causes problems in the right arm. Typically, it's more common. And the reason is because the clot or the embolism or whatever it is, it's easier to get to the left side because it's coming straight up the pipe. It's not having to turn a couple ways. It's harder to get to the right side. Anyway, that's gyruses or gyri and sulci. Okay, main gyrus, main sulcus, and those fellas, get to know them. Brain topography is kind of variable. We do know that in the front we have, forethought, planning, sight, smell, and emotion is kind of inside here. Now, if we look inside here, there's another part called the insula. This is called the Sylvian fissure, the fissure of Sylvia. The Sylvian fissure, and inside there is a thing called the insula, it means it's insulated by other parts of the brain. If we do a cutaway view of that, we have the corpus callosum connects the two, and then we go like this. Actually, let's do that. It goes like this. Wait, there's the rest of the brains. Comes down like that. I just broke the skull, but whatever. It's okay. Terrible drawing, but you get the idea. So this would be parietal lobe, temporal lobe, insula, inside there. This is the insula. Okay, inside. That would be this side of the brain we're looking at. Inside here. Got it? Other parts too, auditory receiving areas are in here. Okay, speech area called Broca's area is up in here. They're different a little bit on either side, but of course, the right ear receives information from the right side and the left ear from the left side. There's a whole coordination process that goes on that makes sure that you can locate three-dimensionally where sounds come from based on the speed of which ear receives the information first, because sound travels at like 600 miles an hour or something like that, and so you're going to receive it a little bit sooner on this side than this side, and your brain's going to pick that up and know this over here, and it's able to also, with even some training, pick whether it's in front or back or above or anything like that. And that also gets the eyes to help work towards it. They all have to coordinate with that kind of stuff. So neuro kind of things is that. I'm trying to think of what else we have to know about that. That's about it. If we look back to, there's an area in the back of the skull. I'm going to take all this stuff off, see if I can do this. We're looking at the bottom of the skull. We're going to pull this stuff out. Boop. This is called the Diencephalon. Okay, these are the thalamuses or thalami. And then we have the corpus callosum up in here. And in the back, there's a little thing, these two little bumps. Where are they at? You have a good picture of them? Oh, it looks like they cut them out. But up into here, there's two little bumps, then another bump above it, which look kind of like this. And then these other two look like this, like a little dog's nose. These are called mammillary bodies. And this is called the pineal gland. There's a lot of problems with the pineal gland because people think it looks like a pine cone. That's not a pine cone. It looks like this. It's a pine nut. It's not a pine cone. It's a pine nut. It drives me crazy. Also, it doesn't make DMT. It makes melatonin. They're kind of similar looking chemicals, but that doesn't count. There's a lot that has to go on to make DMT. Your brain makes parts of it somewhere in the brain, but it's not the pituitary, not the pineal gland. The pineal gland makes melatonin, which has to do with some sight and your circadian rhythm and ultradian rhythm and infradian rhythms that you have to know when it's day and night and when to sleep and when to eat and all that kind of stuff. That's what it does. These down here, the mammillary bodies, they help you with memory and sense of smell, which is the most important and most linked to memory is the sense of smell. It's pretty interesting. So anyway, that's another part of brain anatomy. For today, we're not going to actually do a side quest, but you can do a side quest if you want to. The side quest is going to be look up pineal gland and see how many times that people put it as pine cone shaped. The reason it's called pine cone shaped and not pine nut shaped is because of a translation error, an error of translation. People were reading the work of Descartes, René Descartes, the guy who said, I think, therefore I am. He was actually doing necropsies or autopsies, which at the time was called necrophilia, and you could be burned at the stake for it at the time he was doing it by the Catholic Church. So they didn't like that kind of stuff because they figured, the body and the mind and the soul were all owned by God. It wasn't ours. We were just kind of like the puppets borrowing it for a while. He kind of but he was like really influential in the change, and he thought that the pineal gland was where consciousness really resided. He figured it was the deepest part. That's the only thing he could see. He couldn't tell us what else it did, and so he kind of said that. Now, in the process of translating it, they saw the word pine nut, and they someone miswrote pine cone. That's actually what happened. So when you see people that say your calcification of your pineal gland, it's mostly hogwash. It does show calcifications sometimes, but it's not as ubiquitous as everybody would say. And by doing certain exercises, you don't get rid of it. I've never seen any MRIs, and we have to start using science if we're going to start making claims, and we have to use like MRIs or CT scans to see the calcifications, which you can actually see because I've seen them. I have pictures of MRIs, CT scans, and I've looked and don't see any calcifications in there. Maybe we have to use more detailed ones. I don't know, but I'm saying, not yet. Anyway, this is Dr. Sean over at, we're doing Concord Aurora's Anatomy and Physiology class. This is Bio 1310 and 1320. This is Anatomy and Physiology of the brain. And now, look, I got to put it all back together and get it back in the skull somehow. But do your homework, do your discussion boards, and we'll talk to you next time here on the Happy Crazy Anatomy Show. I don't know, whatever. Do your homework. Talk to you later. Bye.